Hello everybody, today we are going to delve deeply into examination process and we have a special guest, Dominic. Probably you may know him from the previous videos. So let's start. How did you learn about the Japanese medical licensing process?
Right. I learned pretty much everything I needed to know from the website of the ministry. So this would be the Kosei Rodosho. In order to become a doctor in Japan, you need to pass the national licensing examination. And in order to be able to take that examination, you first need to pass a few other exams, which are mainly divided into two different routes that you can take, and two different paths towards the national licensing examination. So one of them, the more direct path, would be the Nihongo Shinryo no Yokuchosa, which is basically an OSCE type exam, which upon passing gives you the right to take the national exam straight away. The other type, the other route that you can take towards the national exam is the Yobishiken, which actually consists of 3 separate exams, much like the USMLE. So the first one is a preclinical exam. It will test your preclinical knowledge, which includes anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, etc. The preclinical topics that we're all familiar with, and also very important, also focuses on public health policy, legislation, just the more administrative side of Japanese healthcare. The second exam is a clinical exam, which focuses on essentially all clinical topics. And finally, there is an OSCE style exam where you would have to give answer orally.
So speaking about your experience, why did you choose the Yobishiken exam?
I didn't really have a choice. In my personal experience, I had to go with the Yobishiken because my country does not give medical licenses to graduates. You need to you need to have finished your residency program in order to obtain a medical license. So I had to go with the Yobishiken. But if you do have a medical license in your home country, then you get the choice. You can go with the Yobishiken or with the much more direct Nihongo Shinryo no Yokuchosa.
So it's better to take a medical license back in your country just to make the process smoothly. Yeah. So would you introduce the structure of the exam itself?
Right. The first 2 exams are multiple choice, actually single choice questions. So they're written exams with multiple choice question with 1 correct answer for each. And as I said previously, the third exam is an oral OSCE style exam. Also, a particularity of the Yobishiken is that upon passing all 3 exams, you will need to take part in a at least 1 year long clinical training program in Japanese hospital. And upon finishing this year-long program, you will be allowed to take the national examination.
Okay. So what resources and study materials have you found most helpful in preparing for those exams?
Ultimately, with many Japanese exams, the central, most useful resource that you can have is the Kakomon, questions from previous years. Unfortunately, unlike other exams, the Yobishiken questions are not publicly available. So the only way that you can get them is from people who have already taken the exam, which is how I got them from by senpais here at Juntendo. Other than that, when it comes to studying, at least for the first one, which is generally considered to be the most difficult, being a preclinical exam, I mostly used a series of books that are mainly oriented towards medical students. They don't need to go into an extreme amount of detail, just enough to cover the topics addressed in the previous in questions from the previous years. Also, this exam sort of resembles an exam that the Japanese students take at the end of the fourth year, I believe, which is why you can also use a question bank for that exam in order to prepare for this one. It's called the CBT question bank.
Okay, thank you for advices. Yeah, so based on your experience, how do you balance your study time between the different subjects tested in the exams?
This was particularly difficult for me because you do need to divide it into your preclinical subjects and your clinical subjects. And your first exam, the first yishen, is in June. So you have up until in June to study for the to study all preclinical topics, and then, assuming you pass the June exam, the second exam is going to be in September. So you have a window of just 3 months to study topics clinical topics for the second exam. And then the last exam is at the start of November. So you have about a month and a half to study, to prepare those sets of skills, that particular set of skills that you need in order to pass an oral Japanese exam.
So yeah, the schedule is pretty busy.
Yeah, I think everyone should focus on what they feel like they're not good enough at. They should definitely focus on those topics. Up until the June exam, I personally did almost exclusively preclinical. So I left all of the clinical knowledge for after the first exam, considering I just graduated and I felt more comfortable with clinical knowledge at the time.
Yeah. So have you taken any preparatory courses or attended any study groups for these exams?
As far as I'm aware, there aren't any preparatory courses for the yishen. A lot of the people that I know, and myself included, we just study in the library a lot.
So based on this, what were the biggest challenge you faced while preparing for those exams?
Actually, I believe that my biggest challenge was not studying for the exam, or not the studying part, but rather the paperwork. The paperwork that came before the exam was very confusing, and the ministry doesn't really give all the necessary information. It doesn't make everything very clear. One particular thing I would like to mention to those watching this video is to absolutely just make sure you have copies of everything, because all the documents that you give for evaluation in order to be able to take these exams, you're not going to get those back. So this isn't specifically mentioned on the website as far as I'm aware, but you should prepare copies of your irreplaceable document, so to say.
Yes, it's really important to know, yeah. So can you just describe your experience with the exams?
Right. Well, this is a pretty broad question. I'm going to try to break it down for each exam. So for the first exam, which, as I said, is generally considered to be the most difficult of the 3 exams, one thing that I've had an issue with is there were so many topics, and there are, I believe, 9 preclinical topics, and I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with how vast anatomy is, or how vast physiology is.
Yeah.
So we had to. I feel like I had to focus on certain things when studying for this exam, and specifically what I focused on is what was in previous exams, which is why it's so important to have access to those previous questions. There's if you just go by the questions in your study, that's going to be far more efficient, and it's going to allow you to grasp all the material. You just make sure that you know everything that you need to know until the exam comes in June. As for the second exam, it says that generally that it is like a clinical exam that focuses on all clinical topics, but specifically it focuses on so-called minor topics. So not so much like internal medicine or surgery, but on topics like dermatology or ortho or ENT. And what makes this exam particularly difficult, especially for foreigners, is that these specialties have, like, these clinical specialties have their own vocabulary. And because this is Japanese we're talking about, having their own vocabulary means for most of them that they also come with some very difficult kanji and subject-specific kanji. So I feel like this second exam is very much a sort of a vocabulary test more than a medical exam, because the exam itself is not very difficult, and from what I understand, almost everyone passes the second one. It's just that you need to be prepared for those questions, because the questions themselves can pose a challenge with the difficult vocabulary that you're not going to see in other specialties. And the third exam, what makes it unusual or what makes it special is the fact that it is an oral exam, which definitely poses an entirely new set of challenges compared to the first and the second one. Because it is an oral exam, you need to be able to think while you are speaking, or while you are reading, while you're reading the subject, the exam subject, you also need to be thinking about what your answer is going to be, and then say it right away. So it very much training for this exam prepares you for working in a hospital. It's a very it is more of a lifelike, or more of a real life situation sort of exam. So this is definitely a skill that you would need to train for in.
Yeah, it seems like all those three types of exams cover like all necessary knowledge that you can have. Yeah.
Precisely. Yes.
Yeah.
And I actually failed the third exam the first time I took it. It was specifically because I found it. I found the month and a half between the second and third exam to be insufficient. Not enough time to get to cover that to cover the 5 topics that come on this exam, which are internal medicine, surgery, OBGYN, pediatrics, and emergency, and covering all of these while adapting to this new exam environment where you get the subject and you have to answer directly to a physician. It is not it was not something that I was prepared for right away. And also in the third exam you also need to write. So you need to be you will be asked to write a letter to to another physician, like a letter from a physician to a physician, sort of write about your diagnosis and what your recommendations are for the patient.
Like a reference letter.
Yes. So you're going to need to be able to have your kanji writing ability down for that.
So it's totally different from previous 2 exams. Yeah. What changes are you planning to make in your preparation strategy for retaking the third exam next year?
Well, one thing to note is that I don't have to take the first and second exams again. Since I passed them, I only need to take the third exam. And what I decided to do is focus as much as possible on clinical knowledge, so that I feel confident when answering the questions to these mostly clinical subjects. And in order to train my speaking ability, and especially what I was talking about earlier, being able to speak while thinking, I have joined Juntendo's study group for the other exam, for the Nihongo Shinyo no Ryuku Chosa, as it trains the same ability.
Yeah, so it seems like the preparation for other exams can be really necessary and helpful in case of Yobishikan.
Yeah, at least for the third one, I feel like the other exam, the Shinyo no Ryuku Chosa, tests pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Or at least there are some common points to it, so I believe that training for the other one also helps you for the Yobishikan.
So what advices would you give to other international students who are considering pursuing a medical license in Japan?
Given that there are so many variables, the paperwork when applying, and then this series of exams that you might have to take, you need to take into account that failure is an option. For example, the first Yobishiken has a pass rate of about 20 to 30%. So it might take 1 or 2 tries to pass the exam.
Yeah. So basically, it seems like very hard, but probably if you do your best, you can deal with it.
So it might take a while, but I believe it's definitely doable.
Yeah. So based on your experience, it seems like it's really possible. So you just need to focus on study and and do your best. So thank you for today. Thank you guys for joining us today. So see you next time.